here are the ingredients that you will need. Beef, some olive oil, red wine, beef broth, bay leaves, curry powder, tomato paste, Worcestershire, curry roux, just a box, 8 mushrooms, 3 carrots, 2 cloves of garlic, a little bit of ginger, 1 large potato, 3 large onions, 1 apple, some salt, pepper, and flour. First things first, you're gonna wash, peel, and cut up all of your vegetables. So it's kind of like a prep stage of the whole big scheme before we start actually cooking with fire. So with a nice, sharp, clean knife, you want to start cutting the vegetables. So with the carrots, you want to cut them kind of like this, just kind of going back and forth and making these kind of fancy looking patterns. Just so it's chunky. You don't want to cut it really tiny. So there's a carrot. And then for the potatoes, kind of want to do the same things, but you know, just like the smaller the bits, the better, because they'll cook in less time. So there's your potatoes. Now for the onion, what you kind of want to do is just cut it up so that it has like that stringy. You don't want to just, you know, chop it, but just cut it up so it's nice and stringy. So, you know, as you know, cutting onions can be a bit painful. So, there's a few little myths as to how to keep your eyes from dying while you're cutting these onions. And you can turn on the water faucet next to the sink. Some people say to chew gum. I just say, you know, wear like ski goggles or sunglasses. Because that's like, truthfully, the only real way to protect yourself from the evil onions. So now we're gonna cut the mushrooms. So after taking off this little bottom part, just cut them in thin little strips of mushrooms, you know? So next we're gonna prep and cook the beef. So you're gonna want about 2 pounds of like lean stew beef, because this is gonna go into a stew and we're gonna cook it up and whatnot. So first thing you wanna do is just kind of set it all out, chop it up into little 1-inch pieces. I just bought them cut like this, so you can do that too. So you want to sprinkle them with a little bit of salt and some freshly ground pepper. Then you're going to want to take some flour and just start kind of coating them in it. Now we're going to cook the meat just a little bit. We're just going to brown it. So you're going to combine a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of olive oil into a pan. And once it heats up and all melts together, we're going to start throwing in pieces of the beef and cooking it up just so it's brown on the outside, and then take it off the heat. See how they're just kind of like, they're browned, but they're not cooked all the way? You want kind of something like that a little bit. Something interesting about the Japanese style cooking, especially with curries, they usually have some kind of a protein in there, whether it's beef or chicken or pork. There's actually a type of curry called katsu curry, which uses breaded pork, and they put the curry on top of it with the rice. So, the more you know. So after adding another tablespoon of butter to a pot, a big pot, one big pot, we're gonna add on all the onions, which is, again, 3 large onions. After all of that has been added in, I'm going to take, again, another tablespoon of olive oil and just let those kind of simmer for a little bit and shrink in size. Okay, so after about 10 minutes or so of just letting the onions simmer, you want to take a little bit of salt. I'm just doing about half a teaspoon or so, and just sprinkle it over it. And then stir it up and wait for the onions to get like translucent and a little bit more so than this. So now that the onions have all kind of simmered down and they're getting a like translucent, very stringy feeling, we're gonna add in 1 tablespoon of curry powder, 2 tablespoons of the tomato paste, or ketchup if you don't have any tomato paste. Add in a little bit of grated ginger, about like 2 inches to 3 inches of grated ginger. 2 cloves of fresh garlic. Now we'll mix them all up and make sure it's all nice stirred together. So after letting the onions with all the powders and mixes in it saute for about 2 minutes, you're going to add the beef in, back in. And then also add in 1 cup of red wine. You just want to let this sit and let the alcohol evaporate. Okay, so after just letting this sit and let the alcohol evaporate, we're going to add in all the vegetables. You want to get your beef broth and just start pouring and cover. You want to cover up all the vegetables, so keep pouring it until all the vegetables are covered up. You don't have to use all of the beef broth, because if you don't, we'll add more in later. So, okay, so now you're just going to want to cover them up, cover up the pot, vegetables, and leave it until the vegetables can get a little soft. So if you look closely at the pot of boiling vegetables, you'll see that there's a thin layer of like fat that is kind of surfaced, the little bubblies. So you want to take either a fat skimmer or something like that and just kind of take it off of there. So now that the veggies have been simmering for a little bit of time, they'll start to kind of soften up, and this is where you want to go in and just put in about 2 bay leaves, full bay leaves, and just kind of let them sit in there. You don't have to stir them in because you're actually going to be taking them out a little bit later. But so just let those sit in there and simmer and cook a little bit with the vegetables to get all those flavors kind of boiling together. Also, once the veggies have simmered for a little bit, you can add in the rest of the broth. So now that the vegetables have all kind of softened up and are nice and movable, we're just going to take out the bay leaves that we put in. Just like so. Try not to take out any of the vegetables with it. And then we're going to add in our curry mixture. Now, traditionally, actually, in Japanese culture, they do use the boxes of curry, which you can find at your, if you go to an Asian supermarket or just at your local supermarket. They come in about 3 different flavor styles. Instead of having like traditional Indian curries do, they have, Indian curries use a lot of like greens or reds, kind of that kind of different curry. But Japanese curry is usually the same except for spiciness. You can have mild or spicy or really hot. So this is just a mild mix, and it should look something like this. And you're gonna use this whole thing. So the curry looks something like this. And it's just these little blocks. So just by, block by block, just kind of start mixing it into the curry gradually. So the more curry roux that you mix in, the thicker the curry is going to be. It might take a while for the roux to dissolve, just because it's thick blocks. So just be patient with it. So once you have the curry roux all mixed in, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of milk and 1 tablespoon of sushiro. last but not least, you want to take your apple and just kind of grate it in here. When serving curry, traditionally in Japan, there are 3 different ways, most popular ways of serving the curry. One is serving the curry with rice, which is known as rice curry. The other is serving curry with udon noodles, which is a very popular kind of noodle, and serving the curry on top of that. And then the third way, most common way, is to serve it as curry bread, which is a bread-like pastry with curry on the inside. So I decided to make my curry and serve it as rice curry. So I just went and made some plain white rice, and when serving curry, put the rice to one side, top it with some curry. Now curry, even though it's become one of the staple foods of Japan, actually was not invented there. It was brought over in the 1800s by the British, so that's kind of interesting. There you go.